So you don't want it to build up because it's going to come out later.
It's going to eat away at you like termites on a tree.
You're not wrong. That was just a weird way to say it. But it's going to come out one way or another, and it's not going to be pretty when it does.
100%. Welcome back to the podcast. If you're new, thank you for being here. There's 27 episodes before this, so go watch those if this is your first one.
Yeah. That means this is episode 28.
Episode 28. Oh, yeah. This is the You, Me, Us Together podcast. We're the Roots. I'm Noah.
I'm Cambria. That sounded really weird.
Yep, that's
I'm
okay.
Cambria. You can say it Cambria.
Cambria.
It doesn't have to be Cambria.
Cambria.
Or Brie. That's fine too.
No, Cambria.
Okay. Noah says Cambria, so.
We're going to continue on now. Names don't matter.
Names don't matter.
This is our usual spot. So, yeah. What are we talking about this week?
We are talking about our social media. That's not the topic for the week.
Tell me the topic. Tell me the topic, and then we'll go into the social media.
The topic. Why conflict or arguments need to be resolved.
Okay. So, we all argue. We know that. If you don't think you argue, you're lying to yourself, or you're like newlywed.
Yeah, or you like don't ever talk to your partner, which isn't good either.
Yeah. So, we'll talk about it, but be thinking about that, all the arguments you've been having while I talk about our social media. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, I guess. Obviously, all the podcast platforms, if you're listening to that here. Our handle is at YouMeUsTogether.
YouMeUs dot together. You got it?
Dot together.
You had it all there. It was just out of order.
Yeah. And our website is ymutogether.com.
There you go.
Yes. So, yeah, this is it. We're just doing things, talking. Yeah. So, anyway, let's get into it.
All right. We have 3 reasons.
3 reasons
that we came up with
that you shouldn't avoid coming to a conclusion in your arguments.
Yes. Which
coming to resolve.
I feel like often when I think of arguments, I think of or fights, I think of yelling,
we don't do that.
We don't do that. And so people always say, if you don't fight, you're lying to yourself. And I always thought, but we don't.
Yeah. But we have what my parents would call passionate conversations pretty often.
Yeah. We never yell. We raise our voices sometimes, and that's how you can tell someone is really hitting their limit.
Yeah. You've yelled at me once, out of anger.
And I feel so bad when I do it. It feels wrong.
Yeah,
but
it's really weird. That's just not us. But it doesn't mean that that's not how other people are.
Yeah,
some people, you grow up in a home where that's just normal, and that's part of your culture, right? Your home life. That's part of
the way you communicate.
Yeah. Some people just communicate that way. The 2 of us don't. Our parents are different, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's something where I always thought, I hear people say that.
Yeah.
That if you don't argue, then you're lying to yourself because everyone argues, and I think, but we don't argue. We don't have fights because we're not, at each other's throats or yelling at each other.
Right.
Hardly ever.
Right.
But we do have arguments. We do have disagreements. They just look different.
Yes.
And not that one way or another is necessarily bad. Obviously, if there's physical contact, that is not okay. But I would say, people just communicate differently.
100%.
Doesn't matter how you communicate, that needs to be resolved.
Yes.
Needs to be resolved. I'm not saying maybe you want to resolve some arguments.
Yeah,
no.
Or most of the time you should do it, but sometimes it's okay not to, stuff like that.
If you truly want your marriage to last...
And thrive.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good point. And thrive. Conflicts, disagreements, arguments, they need to be resolved. To be resolved.
100%.
We came up with 3 reasons.
Yes.
We might come up with more while we're talking about it, but we came up with 3 to start.
Those are cool fingers, thanks.
my fingers.
Go ahead.
They look better on this side because you can see my nail polish.
Super cute. Good job.
Thank you.
Reason
They look
number
like
one.
The little kids' nail polish.
I think
They're
they
all
look
different
super
colors.
good. I love them.
Thank you.
Because they're all like pastel. They're very you.
Yeah, I'm not super bright color kind of person.
Yeah, you're not
I'm
too
pretty granola. My
bright.
tan
shirt.
t-shirt and my Starbucks Frappuccino and my no makeup.
Oh my gosh.
Reason number 1 is what I would think is the most obvious reason. Like the thing that comes to my head first. I don't know about you. This is what comes to my head first. Is that you don't want arguments to not be resolved because it's just going to build up.
Yeah.
And it's just going to fester inside of you. I feel like I've been using that word recently.
Fester.
A lot. It's a weird word.
Yeah.
So you don't want it to build up because it's going to come out later.
It's going to eat away at you like termites on a tree.
You're not wrong, though. It's just a
know.
weird way to say it. But it's going to come out one way or another, and it's not going to be pretty when it does.
100%. Because we blow things out of proportion when we sit and let them fester, like you say.
That's a good word.
Because let's say we have this argument and it's a minor thing, right? It's really not that big a deal, but it doesn't get resolved, right? Mm-hmm. We don't actually come to a conclusion. We don't end the conversation unified. What happens is then it sits and our internal voice blows that scenario way out of proportion. Like, you didn't even think way back to actually do this correctly and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is that's not the truth. But that's what happens. It always happens.
Yeah. I would even say it's just not okay to bring up things in an argument that doesn't pertain to that argument.
Yes.
Like bringing up, well, you did this 3 months ago, and so, first of all, that shouldn't come up because you should have resolved that 3 months ago.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly where it heads. It's like, if you don't resolve it, it's bound to come back up somewhere else because at least one of you hasn't resolved it inside of you personally. Yeah. Even if the other one has, oftentimes women remember, men don't. That's just how it is. Because guys are like, oh, well, yeah, we had this argument, but it really didn't, I don't even think about it anymore. And then she brings it up and it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it also goes back to, we talked about it on a podcast, positivity over negativity.
Yeah.
You want to think positively about your spouse. And if you have this running list of, they did this wrong, they did this wrong, they did this wrong, and you just have it in there to hold it against them, that's not okay. And like you said, the main goal is unity.
100%.
Oneness, as a lot of people like to say. You can't get there if you're going to constantly hold things over their heads and keep a running list of everything they did wrong, every way that they wronged you, and have it there to shove it in their face when you need to.
Right.
Because it's not a competition. No. I'm not trying to constantly be above you.
Not trying to win a competition over each other.
Yeah, we should be trying to win together. By winning means having a lasting marriage. Not me trying to win over you and always prove I'm the better person in this relationship.
Exactly. So, yeah, not letting things fester is like top of the list. I agree with you how it's the first thing that comes to mind because it's the number one thing you hear most about that gets brought up with conflict in marriage is they're like, oh, a lot of guys I've talked to, they're like, yeah, she always holds this thing over my head that happened 10 years ago. And it's like, well, what? Like, did you not get to a resolve in that? Why is she holding it over your head? And making sure that we came to resolution, like actually communicating that, like, are we clear on this? Are we good when it comes to this problem? Because if you just walk away from a conversation without having that dialogue, then maybe I thought it was resolved, but you are far from that.
Yeah.
So, because we have that happen a lot. It feels like where I'm like, okay, we're good. And then I just stop talking after a conversation. You're like over there
It just
frustrated,
keeps
like
building.
why did he stop talking?
Because sometimes it feels like he just doesn't care anymore because he's not saying anything.
Yeah.
And you're over there like, I think it's resolved. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
this is
I've moved on.
getting
I'm
way
thinking
worse.
about something else. I'm thinking about a project I'm doing or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to the whole where you said guys that say their wife still holds something over them from like 10 years ago. I feel like a lot of times that can be like a joke in marriage, you
Yeah.
know? But it's one of those things that's like sarcasm where it's like, yeah, it's a joke, but there's a little bit of truth in there.
It actually happens. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think it should be funny. I don't think that's something that you should joke about because it shouldn't be there.
No.
You should be able to work through things together.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of things that you think might be silly that I'm still holding on to, but I just have trouble resolving it in my head and letting it go. And I really just need you to be patient and work through this with me, even though you think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
And I definitely
Because-
don't tell you it's ridiculous.
I know, but because we're a team, we're in this together. It's not, oh, you resolve the conflict, you're good, let's move on because you're good.
Exactly.
No, we need to both be good in order to move on.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean just dismissing things, because a lot of times it does take a lot more work than we realize to get to the end of a problem. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did want to touch on, in regards to getting to resolve and talking about not letting things fester. Mm-hmm. This doesn't negate what we've said in past podcasts where we've talked about how if you have a conflict and you're both really struggling, but it's not a good time for you to actually discuss it and work through it, this doesn't negate that idea where it's okay to postpone it as long as you say, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to continue this conversation, we're going to resolve this, tomorrow morning after we've both been able to sleep.
Yes.
Because that's a big problem with us is if we start having a passionate conversation at night, it gets blown out of proportion just because we're both worn out from the day.
Yeah. I struggle because I cannot sleep if we're not good.
That's hard.
And I no matter how tired I am, my body's like, nope. You can't. And then you can sleep through whatever. And so sometimes that makes me more mad. It's like he's sleeping and I know I'm going to be awake the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do.
Yeah. So obviously every couple is different.
Yeah.
There have been times where we know that we're fighting through the mundane details for a while because of the time of day or whatever, but we choose to press into it and make sure that we're good before we take a break.
It's that choice
Yeah.
to choose to want to resolve this because this is way more important than winning.
Yeah. So all that to say,
Yeah.
this isn't to make you can't use postponing it as an excuse to not resolve it.
Yeah.
And you can't say, well, we have to resolve this right now every time. Sometimes you do need to postpone it. So
I'm pretty sure we've said this before too, but we like to encourage people, if you do need to postpone an argument, like actually schedule when you're going to talk about it next. Because it's so easy to say, we'll figure this out later, and you never get to it, and then that's when it starts festering.
And those things you don't want to wait days to do. It's like the next day, maybe the following day, but really those things need settled.
Yeah. But like actually schedule it.
Put it on your calendar.
Physically
100%.
put it on your calendar.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I would encourage it.
Yeah, it's weird because people think that marriage isn't supposed to be so rigid and scheduled and on a calendar, but it's just a tool for us to use. And trying to do life with another person is not easy.
No.
Especially with how busy all of us are. And so if we need to put stuff on our calendar, that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's actually, we praise it to other people. We praise other people to do that because it's like,
Yeah.
It's so valuable.
Even like putting sex on your calendar.
Yeah.
Like,
That works for
if
some
that's
people.
what you need to do to get it in sometimes, do it.
Yeah. And for some people, it's fun. It's like, oh, I get to like build it up and anticipate it and do all
Yeah,
that.
look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the other side of that, as you said, not negating the postponing argument. I also want to go to the other side where we've talked about there's some things you just need to let go. And when we talk about that, we mean like little annoyances.
Yeah.
This is an argument. It's not, oh, I need to just let this go because I'm loving him.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something that you sit on for a day or two and it just continues to bother you.
Then you need to have a conversation about it.
You need to bring it up. You
Yes.
need to have a conversation about it, because that's the sign. That's how you know it's going to start
Yeah.
festering. There's that word again.
Yeah, we don't want to. Most of us, especially, I feel like people in our age range, don't want to let our emotions be externalized and actually express that and be vulnerable with other people. And our spouse needs to be the exception, because, we just haven't, a lot of people just haven't grown up in that space where you feel like you're even safe enough to let your emotions out.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that that's okay between us.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the topic is, we need to be okay to discuss things.
Yeah. Your spouse should be your safe place.
Yeah.
They should be that way. If they're not, it's not really something you can fix in them. But if you're the spouse and you feel like, oh, I don't know if they really feel that comfortable, that safe around me, you need to work on that.
Yeah.
Because...
Or even just having
Yeah.
a conversation, again, talking about that with each other. Like, do you feel like you can actually express things to
Yeah.
me if you're really struggling? Or, if you're the one that's struggling to actually come out with some of that stuff, coming to the other person and saying, I don't know what it is, but I don't feel comfortable talking about some of
Yeah.
these things.
And if
And we
you're
need to
on the
talk about it,
receiving end of that, having grace, not being mad at them, like, really, you don't feel like you can just tell me whatever?
Yeah, just spit it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not
So-
the way.
And that's something we have to continue to work on. It's not, you've reached the safe place, you're good.
Yeah.
Like, I have to continue to work to make sure you feel like I'm your safe place. Same with you.
Yep.
It takes
And-
effort.
Seriously, some people need the mediation of a therapist or a counselor to get to that place between the two
Yeah.
of you.
And that's okay. There's no shame in that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because this is what's important. This is most important.
Yep.
And it does not matter what other people think.
Do you want to move on to point 2?
No, I have more than that point.
All right, go ahead.
One,
I'm sorry.
I have a reason for why we don't want it to build up. Another reason,
good.
like
Okay.
a sub point.
Yay.
Because,
You're so organized.
like I said, it comes out when you don't want it to, or when it's inconvenient, and a lot of times it can come out towards other people.
Right.
Not towards your spouse, but
Yes.
towards your kids, towards family members, friends. And it's not fair to them to explode on them something that doesn't even pertain to them, and something that you really should have resolved before.
Yeah.
So I think especially your kids, because that's who you spend most time with, other than your spouse.
Yeah, and you're an example to your kids, right? Setting that example of, yes, mom and dad fight, but we work through it. I don't think fighting in front of your kids, especially if you're loud and that way.
Yeah.
But letting them see, like, yeah, we disagree, but we choose to work through it. We make that choice.
Yeah.
I think that's super valuable for kids to be able to see.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So that could move us into point number 2,
Yeah.
which is setting an example
Yeah. It is.
to our kids, to other married couples around you, to what else is there? Your family.
Frankly, yeah. I mean,
Friends.
we've even found people that have been married longer than us, they, we've actually we've talked to a number of couples where they're older people and they're like, we just didn't have marriage resources when we were young marrieds like this. And so we didn't learn these habits and these, things early on. And so it's cool because we're able to be an example to them where it's like, it's okay to be this way now instead of learning it, when you're 20 years married. So definitely setting an example of unity.
Yeah. We talked about this a lot in the last podcast. Like, when you're out in public, people are looking at you.
Yeah.
They are watching you. Everyone is. It doesn't matter if you want them to or not. And what kind of example do you want to give them?
Yeah.
And I always want to give them a good example. So, yeah, just setting an example, making sure that when people see you, they see just the bond and the strength you guys have together as a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, and it reinforces that sometimes when you do have a disagreement and people can witness you work through it and come out the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are definitely disagreements that should be behind closed doors. We're not saying that all your fighting needs to be in public because it's so easy to use being in public against one another if you're not careful.
It can be manipulative.
Yeah, you can use it as a manipulation.
Yeah. And I wouldn't encourage anyone to fight in public.
No.
But you can't control when things come up sometimes, but you can control how you handle them when they do come up.
Right. That's exactly what we're trying to get to is there's a line, obviously, on what things should be resolved right then and there. But yeah, those things that it's like, no, let's just deal with this right now. That's okay. And knowing how to do it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Right? We may have to do a whole nother episode on how the actual nuts and bolts of how to
I'm gonna
get
write this down.
resolution.
We always forget.
Yeah.
How to get resolution from a conflict.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I'm writing it down because we
right.
always say that and we forget.
Then we forget. As soon as we hit stop, we're like, we said something. I don't remember what it was. Yeah. But yeah, it's really definitely in public around other people because people are watching and knowing the skills of how to get to that resolution.
Yeah.
Is so valuable.
Yeah. So, set an example.
I feel like we grew up thinking about setting an example for your kids, thinking about us as kids growing up and how our parents dealt with conflict around us. We're polar opposites. Our parents are opposites. We're opposites in that way while we were growing up. My parents were like, they just hashed it out right there.
Yeah.
And I remember there were points when I was younger, where I was like, my parents fight so much. And that's when they would say, we're having passionate conversations.
Your mom always says that.
Yeah, she does.
I don't know if I can really remember my parents ever, fighting.
Yeah.
It's not something I saw.
Yeah, and it's just different because of their upbringing, right? It's like this. It's this generational thing that works its way down. And so your parents probably feel like, oh yeah, we showed you guys way more than our parents showed us.
Yeah.
And so it works its way down. But setting an example for your kids so that they can see we work through it because we're willing to put in the work because this is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your babies probably won't understand though. I'm not an expert because I don't have children, but
Yeah. Do we have anything else on set an example?
I don't think so.
All right. Third reason we came up with. You actually came up with this one, and I thought it was pretty brilliant because I didn't think of it. So we're not wasting time together.
Yeah,
Do you want to explain that?
I can. Yeah. It's just about finite time, our finite lifetimes, right? And we've dealt with this some because of dealing with some loss recently, right? It's like we have no idea how much time we have left on this earth. And acknowledging the fact that this is the person I chose to spend the rest of my life with, and I don't want any of that time to be wasted being mad at you.
Yeah.
And so I want to do whatever it takes to make sure that we're good, that we're happy with each other, that we're able to have joy in our life and have fulfillment. And it's like that stuff is stripped away if we're angry with each other.
Yeah.
And we're letting our disagreements fester.
Yeah. Because I want to be good in a good place as much as possible.
100%. That doesn't mean we live in a with a rose-colored lens on that makes us think that we're just always going to be happy and good. That's not it.
And obviously, like, there's some things you just can't control. You can't control if your life is always going to be good.
Yeah.
Things happen.
But interactions between the two of us, we can control.
Yeah. Also, like, if we're in a good place, we're better prepared to stand together as a team when those crappy things come into life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And when life gets stressful, a lot of people run towards other devices. Not just like devices, but like going and hanging out with their friends at the bar or going out and whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Working late, doing those things. Knowing that when life gets stressful, I can come home and know that you are going to help me feel okay with life and the stresses of life and the difficulties that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to the safe place thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like a lot of our podcasts are circular.
They're
We're
very
like,
circular.
That goes back to this point.
Back. I know.
Yeah.
It's because this is circular, right? It's actually triangular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll see that on our merch that may or may not come out soon. We're working on it. I know we mentioned it a lot. We really are working on it.
Absolutely.
There are triangles in the merch.
Yeah. Closer to our God, closer to each other.
Yes. I don't know what the bottom line is for. It just looks good as a shape instead of two lines.
Yeah. It's just representative of the connection.
Yeah.
It's circular in a triangular fashion.
It's a triangle in a circle.
Anyway. Yeah, it's marriage is circular. That's why all of these things tie in together.
That's part of our logo.
It's holistic.
The circle with the arrow.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah. This isn't a one size fits all. This isn't a how you watch one how-to video and you're going to master it. It's a continual pursuit of each other and of God and of unity and oneness. It's a continual pursuit. I mean, I watched a podcast clip today. The guy was like, I've been married for 30 years and we're still learning things about each other and learning how to interact with each other.
Yeah. But they are each year they grow stronger and
100%.
Closer together.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're a much stronger team being married 30 years than being married one.
Yeah. I love seeing the clips of like old couples and they're like, oh, the sex is better than it's ever been. And they're like an elderly couple. It's like, oh my gosh.
Oh, have you seen
amazing.
that one recently where it was like a daughter and a mom and...
Is it one of those where they do shots if they don't want to tell the truth?
No, the mom was talking about how her husband's back was hurting.
Oh,
and the daughter was like, I really think we need to get Dad into a home.
It was
probably those stairs.
Yeah.
And her mom was like, yeah, it wasn't the stairs, but we like the stairs.
We like the stairs. And the daughter's like, I should leave.
I should find that clip.
Yeah.
I've seen it a few times
It's so
recently.
good. It's so funny.
Yeah. That I'm not very good at explaining things, if you could tell. I'm like, this, no, wait, this, no, this.
Yeah.
I try. I try.
Yeah. But if you work at it, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Dad threw his back out again.
It wasn't the stairs. But we like the stairs.
It's terrible.
Yeah. That's the 3 points.
That was
I don't know if
quick.
you have anything else for... I feel like the not wasting time is pretty straightforward. You explained
Yeah.
it very well. Good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't do that often, so yeah. So we'll have to do an episode on like the nuts and bolts of how to get to that resolution. But
Yeah.
we want people to understand, to summarize,
Go for it.
we want people to understand that we can't neglect those little arguments. We can't let them sit. We can't let them just grow inside of us, and that anger and the frustration and you can't bottle that stuff up. And so as couples, especially, because life is hard when it's two of us, and so we need to continue to work towards that unity.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's really hard with two of us, but it can make us so much stronger.
Yeah, and
Together.
it makes life so much better
Yeah.
as a couple than it would be if I was having to do life on my own. Life can be so much more
Yeah.
full and amazing together, but it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. You can either let it get the best of you or you can use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
It just depends on, are you willing to put in the work? Constant work. And I don't know what else. That was going to be a really good moment. Putting in the work and just,
Yeah,
You know?
love,
and love.
sex, food.
Because it can so easily, it can so easily just destroy you trying to figure out how to do life with someone.
Yeah.
Or it can be the most amazing thing ever. And you can inspire other people and you can just... They're so much better together.
It's just good.
Two people on the same team is way better than two people on opposite teams going
That's
against
right.
each other. We can do so much more.
Better together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More better together. Always.
Always. All right, we're going to be done.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening. If you got to the end, we really appreciate it.
Yeah. If you have any questions or anything about conflict resolution or anything we said, feel free to reach out to us.
Yep.
We would love to answer your question on social media or on our website.
Email.
Yeah.
Whatever.
If we have our phone number, you can call us.
Yeah.
Is that for Sophie?
That's for Sophie.
We gotta mention Sophie in every podcast now.
We should. She's our #1 supporter. all
Hashtag
right?
#1 fan.
She likes almost every YouTube video we put out. So,
Yeah.
we love you, Sophie.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go now.
Okay.
Bye.
Till next week.
Yeah.
Bye.